Raid on the Den Helder docks on December 23, 1942. Account of Flight Lieutenant James McAllister, RAF Coastal Command. December 23, 1942. The early morning cold bit at my hands as I climbed into the cockpit of my Lockheed Ventura, serialed AE-707. The ground crew gave their usual nods of encouragement, though the weariness in their eyes was hard to miss. They knew as well as I did the risks of today's mission. Den Helder, heavily fortified, bristling with anti-aircraft guns, and vital to the German war machine. Our orders were clear: strike the docks, disrupt their supply lines, and return if luck held. We took off in formation, 4 Venturas in total, heavy with bombs and determination. The engines roared as we climbed through thick, grey clouds, the North Sea stretching out beneath us like an endless, frozen plain. I glanced at my navigator, Warrant Officer Davies, who was hunched over his maps, tracing our course with a steady hand. Behind me, the gunners checked their weapons, their chatter oddly light-hearted. Perhaps it was their way of masking the tension that gripped us all. As we neared the Dutch coast, the radio crackled with a warning from the lead aircraft. German radar had likely picked us up. Sure enough, moments later, we spotted the first flak bursts ahead, dirty black puffs staining the sky. I tightened my grip on the controls. "Hold steady," I called over the intercom, trying to keep my voice calm. The Ventura wasn't built for dogfights or evasive maneuvers. It was a workhorse, built to deliver its payload and survive just long enough to get home. I pushed her lower, skimming just above the waves to avoid the worst of the flak. The coastline loomed ahead, Den Helder's docks already visible through the haze. "Target in sight," shouted Davies. The gunners were firing now, their tracer rounds streaking into the grey as German defences lit up. The Ventura shuddered as flak exploded uncomfortably close, and a sharp crack told me we'd taken a hit. "Engine 2's losing pressure," the engineer reported. "Ignore it." "We're going in," I replied, gritting my teeth. Lining up for the bombing run, I could see the docks clearly, rows of ships, cranes, and warehouses. I steadied the Ventura, aiming for a cluster of munitions depots. At 500 feet, Davies released the bombs. I felt the aircraft lift slightly as the payload fell away, seconds later followed by a thunderous explosion that seemed to shake the very air around us. "Direct hit," someone yelled. I couldn't afford to celebrate. We were already climbing, banking hard to escape the concentrated fire coming from the docks. A German fighter, a Messerschmitt, swooped in from the left. Our rear gunner opened up, the staccato bursts of his machine gun deafening. I threw the Ventura into a shallow dive, praying our damaged engine would hold. The Messerschmitt pressed its attack, but our gunner's aim was true. A trail of smoke erupted from the enemy aircraft as it veered off, crashing into the sea below. Relief was short-lived. Flak tore into our starboard wing, and the Ventura lurched violently. "She's still flying," I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. "Hang on." Somehow, we made it back over the North Sea, the coastline fading behind us. The damaged engine spluttered and groaned, but it didn't give out. By the time we reached the English coast, the Venturas had scattered, each limping home at its own pace. As we touched down at base, the aircraft bucked and groaned, but the wheels held. The ground crew rushed toward us, their faces a mixture of relief and astonishment. I climbed out, exhausted but alive, and took one last look at the battered Ventura. She had brought us home. The debriefing was brief. The strike had been successful, the docks heavily damaged, though we lost 2 aircraft in the process. It was a stark reminder of the cost of war. As I scribbled my signature on the mission report, I couldn't help but think of the men who hadn't made it back. Another mission, another narrow escape. Den Helder was behind us, but the war pressed on.